Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about posture and hand position. So as a beginning instrumentalist, what you're going to be doing most of the time is sitting down while playing. Marching band and standing up and walking around, all of that stuff will come a little bit later. But at first, you're going to be spending a lot of time sitting down, and this is a great way for you to concentrate on how you actually play your instrument rather than focusing on a lot of other things that are going on while you're actually moving around and standing while you're playing. So you got to figure out how you, depending on how you're built, fit best in the chair. You need to be able to sit comfortably straight, and you need to be able to fully rest on the chair. If you're sitting too far forward and you're trying not to fall off the chair, that's going to create a lot of tension in your body. So you need to be able to comfortably sit on the chair with your feet flat on the floor. I'm tall enough that I tend to sit further back in chairs, but if you're more petite, you do need to scoot a little bit further forward, as long as your feet can be flat on the ground and you're comfortably sitting over your hips, not leaning forward, not leaning back. You just want to sit comfortably tall over your hips. So the next thing you need to do is figure out how much of your thumb goes under the thumb rest, right? The two main balance points of the clarinet when you're playing are your thumb and up here where the mouthpiece goes into your mouth. Those are the only two things that you actually use to hold onto the instrument while you're playing. So you certainly don't want to feel like you're going to drop it and it's going to fall out of your hands. So the tendency is for a lot of students to try to put as much thumb underneath the thumb rest as they can, because it does feel more stable to put the weight of the instrument this far down on your thumb. The problem is if your thumb is here, then the front of your right hand has to be here. And in order to cover all of those holes, you have to do this really uncomfortable curled fingered grip thing that's just not going to work. So as precarious as this sometimes can feel at first, what you want to do is you got this, your first knuckle on your thumb here, right? And the tip of your thumb all the way down here. Your thumb rest should be about halfway between that first knuckle and the tip of your thumb. For some of you, the thumb rest is going to take up all of that space if you have smaller hands. For those of us with larger hands, your thumb rest goes comfortably in the middle. You don't want to put too little thumb under there, because then it might slip out and you might actually then end up dropping the clarinet, which we never want to do. So somewhere between your first knuckle and the tip of your thumb, about halfway between, is where the thumb rest should go. Now you can see I've got a little foam pad on here that does help if the edges of the thumb rest cut into your thumb a little bit and it's a little bit uncomfortable. Music stores often sell these. This one in particular is a little foam pencil grip that I cut into thirds, and it fits just great on clarinet thumb rests. So you can get a foam pencil grip and cut it into thirds and share some with your friends. But it does make the edges of the thumb rest a little bit softer and a little bit more comfortable to put underneath your thumb. So if your thumb is under the thumb rest from your first knuckle to the tip of your thumb, then the front of your hand can very easily and freely reach where it's supposed to on the front. You can easily cover these tone holes and your pinky can comfortably get to all these pinky keys. So now that we know where your thumb is supposed to be, let's talk about your hand position. When you play clarinet, you always want to have gently curved fingers. If they're too flat, you can't move them very fast if you're working on straightening them out. If they're too curved, you also can't move them very fast because there's too much tension the other way. So you want to make sure that they're gently curved. A really good visualization is to get yourself, or at least even think of, a tennis ball. If you look at how gently curved my fingers are while I'm holding the tennis ball, I'm not squeezing it, I'm just holding it. That is about how curved your fingers should be when you're playing an instrument. Again, if you have bigger hands, maybe think of a baseball or a softball. If you have smaller hands, think of a golf ball. But still, think of a ball that's roughly the size of your hand. That's how your fingers should be curved when you play the instrument. So if I transfer this nice gentle curve, left hand on top, right hand on the bottom, with my thumb rest halfway between my first knuckle and the fingertip of my thumb, then my fingers can gently hover over their area of responsibility. So now when they're there, when you move your fingers, you want to make sure that you're always moving from the big knuckle right here, from this knuckle at the top of your palm in your hand. If you're moving from these knuckles from here, again, that creates a lot of extra tension, which will eventually hurt your hands, and you can't move your hands very quickly. You can't move your fingers very quickly, which as woodwind players we need to be able to do. So with gently curved fingers and always moving from this part of your hand, you can actually move them very gently, very quickly, and very fluidly. So make sure that things stay nice and curved. You want to cover the holes with the pads of your fingers. You don't need to worry about the very tips of your fingers. Go for the fleshy pads of your fingers. That's what's going to seal those holes nice and tight. So make sure that you're always moving from this big knuckle, not from the one here. And make sure you're not squeezing too hard. If you've been playing for a little while and you stop and you look at your hands and you can see Cheerio-shaped indents on your fingertips, it means you've been squeezing too hard on your instrument. And if your instrument is causing you to squeeze too hard, if it doesn't make sounds unless you push really, really hard on the instrument, then that means that somewhere there's a pad leaking. So just take it to a music store. They'll be able to figure out where the leak is and they can repair it for you. But if it still plays without you squeezing so hard, that's just you squeezing too hard. So be careful not to, you don't have to force the clarinet to play. You should be able to just gently place your fingers where they go on tops of the keys or over the holes, and they should seal everything and play comfortably. So thumb rest goes halfway between your first knuckle and your thumb tip. You're sitting comfortably straight, your fingers are nice and curved. You move from the big knuckle at the top of your palm. When you do get ready to play, bring the instrument to you. You don't have to lean forward to meet the instrument anyway. You just want to bring it gently to you. And when you are ready to play, and we'll talk about this more in the next video when we talk about embouchure and tongue position and all that good stuff when we are actually playing the instrument, you want to make sure that you have about a 45-degree angle between the reed and your lower lip. So a 45-degree angle is about here. It's not all the way out here. It's also not all the way here. This is really uncomfortable. You wouldn't want to have to play it this way. But remember, even though the bell of the clarinet is called the bell, it's shaped like a bell, it doesn't work the same way as a brass bell. It's not directional. So people will still be able to hear you even if the bell is pointed down at the floor rather than out at your audience. Because there are so many open holes in the instrument, sound and air are going to come out of all of the holes. All of the things that are not covered is where sound is going to be coming out. So as long as your audience is in front of you, they're going to be able to hear you. So keep things at a nice 45-degree angle. Don't squeeze too hard, move gently, and sit up nice and straight.